The first thing on my list for decreasing expenses is tracking your lesson horse usage, taking inventory of the animals you have as team members, and because that's so linked. Like if you have too many horses, well then you have too much hay, you have too much shavings, you have too much vet, you have too much farrier, you have too much staff. Because a lot of people I see, like they don't really have the clientele to support all those team members. And so the first thing you can do, and then not only that, is you should, again, like a key part of your business is being really good at buying and selling horses. So you should know how to sell retail and buy wholesale to some degree. So you should sell the horses that you don't need retail. So not only does it decrease expenses, but it should put cash in your pocket. It should dramatically. So always going through that. I don't think I've ever talked to somebody that really ran it, like ran it lean enough. I'm not talking about overworking any horses, but I always find, an example, I know, like you have too many horses. It's a phenomenon that happens to every barn because I've never met a horse I didn't like. I really haven't. I realized one day that I don't know, I've bought maybe, maybe 15 horses I've bought in my lifetime. I'd say most of them were like the first horse I tried when I was shopping, and I'm like, am I just really good at it, or is it like, no, every horse I've ever ridden, I'm kind of like, oh, I love it, I want it.
Something that kind of ties in with what you're talking about that we've done, and it's really been something Helene has done, so you could really talk on it, but is we have created an environment that that a lot of our adult ladies want to own a horse.
Yeah.
They ride a couple times a week in the adult ladies classes in the mornings. But Helene has kind of set up a program where it's cool to have your horse used as a lesson horse. And I think it started when we sold a lesson horse to somebody that was, I don't have time to necessarily ride all the time. So part of what we do is that we will use this horse, make sure it stays fit, make sure he stays exercised. If he's naughty and needs to be schooled, we would make sure and handle that. So then you give them a decreased price on board, but they are paying board, veterinary, farrier, and I mean, some of our client-owned lesson horses are used over 50 hours a week, or 50 hours a month, and that's kind of our target number for lesson horses is over 40. They need to go over 40 hours a month. But some of our client-owned horses are actually our very, very best horses, which will be well in the 50s or 60s, which as far as usage. But so that's kind of become a cool thing. And how many do we have? 6 or so now of client-owned, six or seven client-owned, and we actually have had at least one client that she has set out to buy. You guys go find the lesson horse that I can have as my next horse, and she's now got a number of horses that we use for lesson.
And to sell our lesson horses to someone, and then we still use them as lesson horses.
Yeah, and we actually had what our highest used lesson horse, which was a retired show horse that I was able to buy from clients.
Those are the perfect avatar of the horse. Is the horse that just isn't competitive in the show ring anymore.
Yeah, she was just done.
But it's such a perfect.
And she was so good. And this lady just loved her. She was 20, 21, somewhere in there. And I'm like, she's not for sale. So, go find me a horse like this one. So we searched, and she bought a horse, a lesson horse. And I don't know, you finally,
I'm like, sell Kelly.
And I'm like, okay, well, Kelly's got a list of issues. She's in her 20s, and she's whatever. And Helene's like, and I'm like, it's not going to be worthwhile to do that. And you sold her for $20,000 and said, this is what this horse is worth to us to not have. And she paid that, and she's still in our number one lesson horse. And because this horse has got a circulation issue, and she has to be moved. She has to be used. So the vet, when they did a vet check, which she was actually clean, it was bizarre, but said
Yeah.
This horse needs to be used. Don't change what this horse is doing, and reiterated that to the lady buying the horse. So she checks to make sure that her horse is being ridden enough. Yeah, you know, that's it's a change in mentality. But to have, if I could have most of my lesson horses be owned by people that think it's cool to be in the club, to have their horses used, and they're still paying us, then it's not a stall that I'm paying for. They're paying a reduced price of board, but
and it's a benefit to them because they don't have to have the horse in.
Do you think they would do without the reduced board? Because I do the same thing, but I don't.
oh, probably. I mean, we
don't,
just give
like,
them a
give
perk,
them,
but
like,
we
a
went
perk
way up
for
on
it.
our board. We like
Yeah.
way up. So I don't
Yeah.
know how you even did it. I don't even know our number. Sometimes you ask me, "What do you charge for this?" I'm like, I don't know. I have to ask Colleen. That's good or bad. That's you know.
Yeah.
So what do we do on board for those guys?
Oh, we give them 150 off
150.
a month.
But they are paying.
But it's after we substantially raised our board.
Yeah.
So they still got a raised amount, but not as much as others.
I think that's good business.
Yeah.
But that's something, like I said, that I never would have thought would have been something, and it just kind of got created, and then you've just enhanced it.
Well,
So-
yeah. So it's something also that you have to. It's a long-term goal. So you know, I pick out in my head like what's a good match, and then give them lessons on. I don't give lessons, but have them use that horse with that person, and they develop that. And then I start. Hey, did you ever think about ownership? And, you know,
Like I said,
the little
Colleen's
clubs.
she's my closer on everything. If it's going to be to just upsell somebody, if it's going to be, and so when she floats around the barn during lesson time, or we also have a big communication with our instructors that will send her a text, you know, Wednesday 4:00, so and so, and then the next week she'll make sure she's downstairs. Her office is upstairs over the downstairs offices, and that she comes downstairs and she's out in the arena and talking about, oh, well, boy, Sarah really has improved. Oh, this, that's whatever is, have you guys thought about stepping up, or I would love to visit with you if there's any interest in this, and sets those appointments. But that's, so the instructors will pick out stuff, text you. That's pretty much the thing.
Sometimes I just walk around the barn and I'm
Pick
like,
some
wow,
of
that kid's really good. Let me talk to the parents. You know? Just
And then, I mean, there's,
That's so much more powerful than, like a mass email like, hey, who wants to upgrade, versus being like, you are ready. Like, and we don't say that to everybody. Like, I need to talk to you for a specific
we
reason.
want it to feel
And
like that.
You're ready, and so it's more like planting a very specific seed to being like, look, I've been watching your kid's progress. She's incredibly talented. She's incredibly dedicated. I'm just, obviously there's an investment. So when, I just want to plant a seed. My dad is the king of this. He's like he'll manipulate your entire mind, because he'll be like, I just want to plant a seed. You're like, no, please. I'm just gonna you're gonna manipulate me. Plant a seed that it makes sense for these reasons for you guys to start stepping up. And I know it's an investment, but again, the benefits.
that's huge.
are huge, and this is a lifelong sport, and I know my parents had to make sacrifices for me to do it, but I'm so grateful. So plant a seed, right? And so you don't have to do a hard sell, but hey, I just want to plant a seed. Just go around planting seeds that your kid is really ready for horse ownership. Your kid really needs to be riding more than once a week, because like we said, you make exponential progress sometimes when you increase just a little bit. And so we'd love to see her twice a week. We'd love to see her
Even
doing
leases,
this,
that works for leases
I'd
too.
love to see her half lease. This particular horse for this particular time frame would be incredible for her riding career. But just planting that seed, and my door is open when you guys go home and talk about it or whatever. So that's,
I sold
know.
a lesson horse over
So-
Christmas to a little girl that was doing a lease for a little while.
That was when I went and I'm like, she,
I,
Yeah.
You were like,
yeah.
this kid, this whatever, and we're like, what? Just and then put it together at least. Well, they went to some little shows, but
And I
then,
planted the seed
you
early
totally
for them to
worked,
buy the
totally
horse.
worked the
Yeah.
buy the horse thing. That's then you had to convince me that I want. I'm like, no, I don't think I want to sit. And you're like, yes, you do. You know, yes, you do. But that's not one we use as a lesson horse anymore. So it's to have your lesson horses paid for is the adults, the adult ladies that think that they like to watch these other people on their horse and they're even more part of the thing. The kids, no, that's my horse. No.
Right.
That's a big.
And then Rio was a great success story also.
Yeah, so that was one that
A show horse.
a national show lease that I owned, that and we had a lady that just
Same one that bought Callie, actually.
Yeah.
But I had to work really hard to let them sell this
well,
horse.
this horse wasn't for sale. It was a dear friend of mine who passed away, and I told her, you know, I mean, it was just one of those, and it was a moneymaker because he was a national show lease, so we would get $3,000 a year for the lease fee. Then they would pay all expenses in training and everything. But and he was just but that was this lady so desperately wanted to be a part of our show team, and she's blind, you know, mostly blind, and so
The woman is?
the woman.
Yeah.
But so she wasn't like she could ride, and she had ridden before she lost her sight, you know, just things. But that allowed her an in to that. And now, how many show horses does she own?
I don't
Three.
know. 3, yeah.
And then she owns a pile of lesson horses.
I mean, I'm gonna get a little eyelash right here.
Oh, good. Thank you.
That's you know, so but that was and we sold him for more money than I would have ever sold him for if I was trying to find a buyer, because I didn't want to sell him. But
Right.
that was her in, and money was not the thing. And then she immediately became Rio's owner to be a part of everything. So they're different, and that was, I don't even know how, I was at U.S. Nationals, and you called and said, well, I think we need to sell Rio. I'm like, what? We're not selling this horse. You know, that's so a lot of times you come up with the idea, you put the whole thing together, and then you have to manipulate me to come along.
I had to sell for
Plant the
everybody.
seed is how we call
Yes,
that now.
yes. It's just like, well, how much money would you sell this horse for 40? You know, and I'm like, well, damn right, I would. You know, I mean, whatever. I mean, but just, I'm like, are you kidding? He's not worth it.
Yeah.
You know, but he is to.
Her, yeah.
So it's really important that you create an ecosystem in your barn, and I think horse sales is a really important lever. We don't talk about it enough in here. We just talk about getting lessons, but creating that ecosystem and working horse sales into the model, because you've created a pool of buyers, and that's a huge upsell, and that's the back end. So we'll talk about the front end and the back end. You guys have a robust back end. In terms of decreasing expenses, decreasing staff, it can go hand in hand with decreasing horses sometimes. I had a client that looked at this closely and was able to reduce staff hours a little bit, reduce horses a little bit, and that obviously has a huge impact. You can renegotiate your vendor terms. I had a client that was renting, and they rented, and they were more horse owner focused, and so they had like 20 boarders, and so, you know, I had her go back to the landlord and say, look, for every 10 horses that I bring you that are paying full board, I want a free stall for one of my horses. So that right there, because the stalls were, I don't know, $1,000 a month at that time. So 2 free stalls that she was paying for was $24,000 in annual savings, just by negotiating that. But really looking at all of your vendors and can I renegotiate? Can I get an RFP from 3 insurance people? Can I get an RFP from 3 hay people? Can I get an RFP for 3 different farriers? Can I look at my vet and shop the vet, right? So shopping all those things.
What's an RFP?
Request for proposal.
Okay.
So when you get big, right? Like we're all here trying to get business. Remember, we are pretty big customers at a certain point to a lot of people, and a lot of people want that business. A lot of insurance people want my business. A lot of landscapers want my business. A lot of, you know, so all the people I'm paying, after a while, you should reshop those relationships. And even if you just use that to be like, hey, look, to my current guy, I got a quote for this, like, would you consider matching it, you know? And then buying in more bulk, right? Because you start buying in bulk, like, I hope we're not always buying everything one-off retail, right? We can buy a little bit more bulk. The interesting thing too is actually when you realize that you have a massive, so I'll give you a couple examples of, it's called vertically integrating, but you basically become the vendor. So I talked to a guy the other day who was like, yeah, I have 35 horses that all need farrier and I hate my farrier. And he's like, I'm actually a good farrier. So what he did is he became the farrier for all these horses. So now that was what becomes your biggest expense, you're now making money on. So he would line up all the horses, he would give the notes. He had like a guy that did, I loved it because this is what I'm talking about, where there was a famous painter that was the royal painter in the 1600s or something, and he basically had interns set everything up and he would just do the face because he decided the face was what made the painting. But the background, the landscape, he gave those instructions to a whole team, and he created like thousands of these oil paintings because he would just come in and do the face. And so this instructor, he would line up all the horses. He would have an assistant that would come in and trim all the horses, and each one, he ended up doing a better job because like this horse needs this needs this. He would lay it all out, like, and he would get all the materials, and then he would come on and just kind of look it over and be like, no, fix this. And now he, his big expensive farrier. A lot of people start growing their own hay at a certain point. I realized in my business, I was spending, I think, $1,500 a month in software. So I became a software company. And now I make money on all the software that we give to our clients. These are just examples of vertically integrating and making money. Like, that's a huge swing when I was, even if I, switch it where I was spending $1,500 a month on software, now I'm making a little bit of money on software, it becomes a big swing. And the same thing, the guy that was like spending all this money on farrier, he didn't even like it, and now he's making a little bit of money as a farrier, growing his own hay, doing a lot. I want to be a little bit careful that I don't end up, because I think that my time is really valuable. So sometimes I still, I'm not saying that I want to do everything myself, but you may look at one of your big expenses and where you're a huge customer, and you may try to reshop it, and you're like, I'm actually really good at this particular thing. I might do it myself. The other thing too is you can just go through and say you lost your credit card on all your credit cards, and because my wife and I, when you start really like getting rolling and you're busy, like you sign up for like New York Times subscription because you wanted to read one article, and now I'm paying for it for 3 years, and a lot of that adds up too. So do all that, and then the important things that you need to keep, trust me, like we'll reach back out to you and be like, hey, like your card didn't go through, and you're like, oh, I need that. But then like 3 other things will be like, hey, I've been like trying to cancel New York Times, but I can't remember what email I signed up for it with, and the description on the credit card is just like, pretty vague, and I'm like, how do I cancel this? There's like not even a number on here. I'm like, how do I log in? I can't even log in and cancel it, and I'm like, ugh, and I run out of time. But that's an easy way to kind of get rid of all the subscriptions that you're not using. I think that increasing your client to delivery ratio, grouping people together, switching to 30-minute privates is an example of that. Anytime, it makes more sense for me to have all of you here in the same room, same time, rather than always deliver this message, one-to-one. So putting your information in a course, getting good, and a lot of times we find that it's more fun to be in a little group than it is to. So sometimes you want a private, but I've seen a lot of barns. They're like they teach 3 1-hour privates with an hour buffer in between, and the instructor's there the whole time, right? And so I'm like, okay, right off the bat, like let's group those people into one single hour, So if you can, any of these things all combined together are going to make a difference.
Can I ask you a question about like the buying your vendors?
Yeah.
Like, how do you decide, like, what's worth it, I guess, because I've been debating taking over like our manure removal.
That's
They-
a great one. Yeah.
They sell like roll-off dump trailers,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, heck, I could buy 10 of them and just drop them at farms, and then my son
Yeah.
is going to be turning 16, so I figured
Yeah.
I could just turn it over to him to like, you pick them up, dump them, redeliver them,
Yeah.
and they pay like a monthly to me.
Right.
My hard part is like I pay $100 a month right now to get my manure removed, so I'm like, I'm not paying like a ton, but there is business opportunity there. But then I'm like you, but I'm like, do I have time to actually put all that together?
Yeah.
And
And
so
how
I'm
much
not
would
sure.
it cost you to buy all the trailers? And,
Yeah, I mean, one trailer to get started, it would I'd probably be like 30 to get started. So I don't know where if
It's
the
a lot of
numbers
months.
Yeah.
numbers come out. Now I don't know how much I could charge to leave manure bins at other people's places.
Yeah. That's not looking that attractive because unless you go find an area where manure removal is another great one to look at because some people are paying obscene amounts.
Yeah,
And then in a concentrated area, and you can go in and undercut them all, right?
Yeah.
But it's gonna be hard if there's a guy already doing it for 100, like, to go undercut him
yeah,
doesn't leave
It'd
much
be
for you. He's
impossible.
already raced to the bottom.
And
So
unless you have the setup to actually
Well, the guy.
utilize it, let it sit, combine it with sand, create compost,
Well,
and
I
market
wouldn't.
it to sell it.
I wouldn't.
You know,
I
that
wouldn't.
whole-
I wouldn't compost it. Actually, so the guy that takes mine, he doesn't take anyone else's. But he said if I wanted to do something like this, I could dump at. He runs an excavation company, and he said I could dump at his place as much as I wanted. So that it's. I wouldn't necessarily be undercutting him. Yeah, I don't know. Just something I've been bouncing around, and I'm not sure if it's justifiable or not. I guess.
yeah, that one's not looking that attractive for you.
Yeah.
Right, $30,000 to save $100.
Yeah, that's
Um,
where I.
And it'll take you forever to recoup that.
Yeah.
But there's that's a hard one because there's other benefits like would be a great potential like working experience for your son.
Yeah, that was my main priority actually with it. Was like my main drive was like give him like an opportunity to figure out how to build a business and maintain a business, but
I think it would be so I think there's a lot of value there. But in terms of just pure cost savings, it's not as good as my buddy who is the farrier and me starting
it's
software.
paying thousands a month already to.
Yeah, you kind of want to look from a pure business perspective. You want to look at something that's really, costing you a lot of money, and you're good at it, right?
Yeah.
So like I have an insurance license, so, I might look at like if my insurance was through the roof, I'd be like, man, I should just be selling this to all my clients, But again, there is definitely like this is something to be very careful about because there's definitely a world where all of a sudden my side hustle is actually like eating into my main thing, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of want to pick your domain that is your main thing, and is something a little bit more synergistic. But yeah, manure removal for some of my clients, I'm like, they're like, oh, this manure removal is killing me. I'm like, well, follow them and find out where they're dumping it, and like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's a dumpster, and then they're selling your manure to somebody else, and they're making money on both ends.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard. And yeah, I've got a guy, that like I've got a guy and I've got a truck. So part of me is looking at that for sure. So I like where your head's at.
I had one other question about decreasing staff because I've had an idea bouncing around in my head, and maybe you've dealt with people that have tried this. But with our new barn, we'll have 12 stalls in there. Just replacing 12 stalls that were sitting there, but I'm debating because essentially just the school horses will move in and out of there They won't necessarily even be like a full permanent stall, but we've debated doing more like community chores, to the point where like when you put your horse away, you pick the few poops that are in there out into tubs or whatever in the aisleway, and then I pay someone to come in twice a week and strip the stalls and rebed, rather than paying someone, you know,
Every day.
$5 a stall every single day. I'm wondering, like, maybe that's just something I have to try to see if I can get it to work. But I was wondering if you've
Who would be the
anyone try it.
community people, like lesson kids?
Yeah, like lesson kids. Like, hey, your horse goes back in their stall. There's 3 or 4 poops in there. There's a few picks and tubs in the aisleway. You know, while you put them away, you just throw the poops in
Yeah,
the
I
tub,
love
and
that.
like
I love that.
decrease that way. Because I sold a horse to some people up in Washington, and I went up and taught a little clinic while I was up there, and they had a board in the barn that said community chores, and I'm like, I pay for all this shit. I'm like, but like in reality, you know, they're not hard chores. It was like
I don't know.
sweeping and picking
That's the
poop
experience
out
that I would be happy to, like, I'd be happy. That's a good example where, for me as a parent, and then, you know, like I did have a guy that was like, no, we don't want to do any unmounted lessons because we're moving to a new area where all that's taken care of, and so our line is like, well, if you don't really value that, learning how to take care of the animal, like, this isn't going to be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people, you know, but a lot of parents are like, oh no, like, so you want to get that buy-in
Yeah.
of like, yeah, no, you know. And I heard a story too of Pat Pirelli, like like it's making money off your customers. He was like, you know, people would, and I see what the same concept, people would pay a lot of money to do the Pat Pirelli training
Yeah.
and come work for him, and then, you know, they'd get there and they'd be like, all right, your job today is to paint all this fencing, you know, like, you know.
Yeah,
And they paid a lot of money for this,
Farm fit.
farm fit, yeah. And so like, you have to be a little bit careful, because I had another client that during summer camp, like, she had her kids doing some of that too, and like the mom left her a really bad review, like, I'm paying for summer camp and you're like, you know, you're exploiting my kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, when you get back
Depends
in,
on how you package
you
it.
pick out your horse's feet, we're talking 10 minutes of you know, pick the stall a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think there's a spectrum where at a certain point, you're just like exploiting people. But I don't think what you're saying.
Well, it's even part of the horsemanship curriculum. Like,
Yeah.
there's part of it that is like, I know how to clean a stall. You know,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
so I mean, it is even part of the learning side of it. It'll just be interesting, I guess, to see how it sells.
And I always share the perspective of, at some point, you're going to own your own horse. And whether you're at my barn or another barn, I want you to know it's so easy to pick up a few of those poops, but also your horse is less likely to lay down on that.
Yeah.
If it's winter and they're frozen, that's going to press into
Yeah.
them, whatever. And if you could just give it a quick scoop, the next person that comes along is going to do the same, and it just improves it a little bit at
For
a
the
time.
horse's sake.
You know, I want you to know how to do that rather than neglect to realize how important it's going to be for you in 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say that to parents. and
Yeah,
kids.
it's really, I think it's really nuanced too, because, if you just say, oh yes, for sure, but like, you want to look at each situation is so nuanced to make sure you're A, not exploiting, and then B, you know, you all get those messages from parents that are like, oh no, like, I want my kid to come here and work for you,
Yeah.
and then they can ride all the horses, and you're like, okay, like, your kid's not gonna do that, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather hire somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you pay for your lessons, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because your kid's not gonna have much value, they're not gonna be that reliable. But I also look back, like, when I had my first pony, we put him in a boarding barn, right? And I did clean the stalls, and the feed was included, but the stall cleaning wasn't. The filling his water bucket wasn't, and then he had a bran mash every night that he needed. So it was like, I'd ride my bike down and do a few things for the pony, and it's like, that's what I think a lot of people are talking about. It's like, okay, now my kid has to think about something other than himself all day.
Yeah.
And that's really valuable. So if you can do it in a way that truly adds value to you, is not exploitive, in the eyes of the parent, is actually a benefit,
Yeah.
and it is, then I love that. I think switching, like in some cases, companies will get you to pay all year round for something that you really only use. And so you might look through that and see if there's something that you'd save a little bit of money, be like, hey, look, can I just pay you the one time you do this, rather than they put you on a subscription. I think technology can save you money and time. So the big one that we always get people to switch to is Stripe, because or some form of auto pay versus invoice. Even like, I think you guys are a little bit in this camp where when my parents ran their yoga studio, it's the same thing. They're like getting checks from everybody, and then it was like amazing, like, oh, there's this, it was through Costco, had this credit card thing. But honestly, running all the credit cards manually every month was actually, it would take like an hour, maybe even more. I think that's if you're good at it. And then like things wouldn't go through, and like it was this complicated process. And so when I think of Helene, like if she's in a sales opportunity, that's like your area of genius, and that's like so valuable. So if all you have to, first of all, Stripe is going to just automatically, and then another team member, which for me is a VA, is going to look at which ones didn't go through, and then has to follow up on those and make a note, okay, well, this person's already is already coming out, we're going to talk to this person, or this team member has already talked, so we'll get the new card then and make sure that's a priority.
Mm-hmm.
But then, somebody like Josh isn't spending his time, Josh is going to be like you, like where he's going to be floating around our book of business and seeing where are the sales opportunities, and so that's a big one, is Stripe. I'm trying to think of the technologies that really save you money, kind of indirectly, because a lot of people are like, oh no, I don't really want to pay Stripe because they're expensive. They're 3.5% maybe, and it's something like that.
2.9.
Yeah.
It's the same as all the other credit card processing, except the bank, which is 2.9 plus 10 cents.
But I hear, like I've sat down with big schools that are like, we're doing $1 million in revenue. You want me to give $30,000 to a credit card company? And it's like, yeah, I do, because I think that the time you spend right now invoicing, like
It's worth that.
It's if you get one more client from it, like you win, and then they always go, oh, you're right, and I'm like, and what are you paying your invoicer? And it's usually $30,000, and then like, yeah, so you pay you $30,000 to do something that Stripe's doing. Like, could you now? I still keep you, but instead of that part of your day, like if you set 3 meetings to talk about the stuff, the stuff, like, and then also the big lever for you guys to pull, and this is like the best lever to always pull in your business and always be thinking about it, and is pricing. So pricing, like finding a way to increase your prices, has just huge benefits, just massive. And you guys have a big opportunity. I'm more or less happy with your guys' pricing, not crazy about your, like, because I kind of want everything to be, if we're getting $345 for 1 lesson a week, I don't like to, there's one of your price points that like you kind of drop below that cost per unit in your thing.
All of mine, when I redid the pricing, I know that the value for what they're getting is more than, like, are you saying?
I'm saying if 1 lesson a week is $345, let's just say
factor.
$350, then two lessons a week, I kind of want it to be closer to $700, and 3 lessons a week, I want it to be closer to $1,000.
Can I ask a question about that I've struggled with? Because like, it's kind of become standard, like when people ask about cost, you know, we say, hey, it breaks down to about $43 a lesson. Well, that includes horsemanship, but that actually isn't the case if you do double and you're only getting one
Right.
horsemanship lesson
I
per
struggle
week.
with that same question.
Because then all of a sudden it's like $60 you know, it's actually more to go into the accelerated program. I struggled so long just saying I'm selling the program, I'm not selling the lesson, and now I catch myself instead of saying, hey, it's $350, because that number feels a bit shocking to people until they understand what they're buying into.
So what do you say?
I say right now, like, you know, our program includes riding lessons and horsemanship lessons, and it breaks down to about $43 per lesson.
And then how do you sell the upgrade when it gets more?
Well, I
expensive?
don't even address it. But if anyone ever thought about it, they'd be like, actually, I'm paying more per lesson to go to it. And maybe no one would ever, you know, I've never had anyone be like, oh, it's actually more
But they're
per
gaining,
lesson
as
at
they're
that point.
upgrading, they're gaining more access to other things too. At least that's how I present it. Like the people who
Yeah.
upgrade are gaining more access to barn time, barn activities, exposure to special exclusive things that are for those team members.
I struggle with it too.
And that's where the
I
added value is.
I struggle with it too, but at the end of the day, like people enroll in it without question
Yeah,
too.
no one's ever.
So I think we need to understand, yeah.
Because mine's at $350 and $650, and I probably need to just bump it to the $700. I think before I had it like $100 less even, and then when we raised prices the last time is when I bumped it.
Yeah, let's come up with a more concrete answer, because I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, it's really important that your price is the. So I think there's the way you explain your price in a per unit way, and that's really bad. I mean, if it works, it works, but and that's how people think. They think.
Yeah.
But the training of a price point is, people do it all wrong with the pricing. They do it, they say, let me see what everybody else is charging, all these other places that are about to go out of business. Let me look at what all these other places that are going out of business are charging, and let me give a little bit more for a little bit less. Like, that's kind of like the typical entrepreneur's thought process. And like, I stopped doing that. I started just sort of seeing like, well,
How much can I?
What do I need
what
to
will
make?
people actually pay? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
or yeah, like what will people actually pay for this? Which is more like value based. And the other mistake people do is they think they'll just kind of panel a bunch of potential customers and be like their friends. And this is a terrible idea to be like, what would you pay? What would you pay for this? Do you think it would be unreasonable for me to charge $350? And they're all going to go, yeah, no one will pay that, right? And that's not the right way. That feels like a definitive answer. It's like, I asked 3 people, would they pay this? The definitive answer is, and we've done this with so many people, is we actually create like a premium price point and a premium sales presentation, and we actually pitch it and try to get it from the market,
Yeah.
even though the barn down the street is a fraction of that, right? And the only definitive answer is like, after I've pitched it 30 times, actually 9 people said yes. So there's my answer on what the price should be, what the value is to actual people with a great sales presentation. So a lot of people, like, that's what I want to know. And unfortunately, like, that's where entrepreneurs have to live in the future and have to just actually do it. And like, when you actually did it, you got yeses, even though
We doubled our price.
you doubled your
basically.
price, and even if it only hurts conversions, even if it hurts conversions, then you just have to, because like, it's hard for Travis. Travis was dating a girl, and then his current wife saw that and like moved in and like was fighting over him. He's like the Bachelor, and now he likes that and he's used to that. And so now you have to get in a position where you're like, got to learn to court people, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know how to do that. Like, my whole life, I'm like getting rejected and courting people. Like, I know how to do that. So
when you doubled your pricing, how did you handle your existing clients, and for what period of time?
Well, this was back in Brian's hard ass days. We just switched everyone over.
And you just doubled So
Yeah.
if you
we
had,
we were going per lesson. We weren't subscription based, and they were paying like $40 a lesson. So we figure on about 160 ish, and we went up to 300.
But did you add the unmounted?
Yeah, we added the unmounted. We added value, and we
And a curriculum.
and a curriculum. Like we went through all the steps of it, and I just after we left here, I was like, I'm just doing it. I'm gonna change everyone over because I did
how
the math.
many-
I could lose half the people and still be making the same amount of money. So to me, it was not really a risk, and I knew I probably wasn't gonna lose half of who was there.
How
and
did
so
you
what,
lose?
yeah.
I can't even remember. It wasn't even 20%. I don't think we didn't lose that many. And then when we started,
So
That's
it's
the
all
price.
Because you added the
because you
value.
sold the value.
yeah, we sold the value
Yeah.
a ton, and we did that before we even talked about like raising the price. We sold the value first, then we came in and said, hey, with all the changes, it's gonna be more convenient to you. You're gonna get to self-schedule. Like that was a big piece. Like for people to feel like you can self-schedule. Lessons are gonna still happen even when we leave and go to horse shows. Like the lessons are still gonna happen. Like people were,
Because you had staff.
yeah,
This is what I'm trying to do with you guys. The price lever.
And see, something that am evolving, but just having been in business for as long as I've been in business, the Riding Academy was my big funnel. Yeah, you know, so this was where everybody came into. Then
but make
they
money
would
on the
start
front end
right.
and the
No,
back
no,
end.
absolutely. But that was so it was. So I'm having just a mind shift change, even though I know and say, and we talk about a lot for many years, that the academy is our most important piece, profitable piece of our business compared to our show team. But as far as it was get all these people in, then go to twice a week or 3 times a week, and then go to leasing a horse, then go to buying a horse. And so as these group down here, they give us so much money instead of me thinking backwards that I need to go ahead and filter these people at the very top with a higher entry price point and not just a volume of people. You know,
Yeah,
I was
but I
going
don't
for
think-
It might not
but
be
he
one or
lost
the
20
other.
He doubled and he lost 20%, and then he learned how to market, and he filled it. So it's not even. I'm not even saying like I don't think your funnel needs to even be smaller.
when
I
you
just think
guys
you
say-
can.
no, when I don't
just
mean
think-
smaller. I just mean that was my mental was to keep my entry price
It's the same.
point.
It's the same exact funnel, and I don't think. Yeah, I don't
Catch
think
more
you're gonna
fish
lose.
with a bigger net,
I don't
but you're
think
not
you're-
actually getting a smaller net.
I think
Yeah.
you should still maintain the same amount of lessons you currently have and everything. So
plus I think the bottom of your funnel will get bigger the more money people are spending up here.
Yeah, no,
You're
I,
more
that,
likely
that's
to be
my
the
that's
people
my
that
mind
spend
shift.
the money.
Exactly
Like,
what you
Yeah.
said.
you
That's,
can do like with more with a better price point, and like yeah, I want to get involved with horses, and I want to pay $160 a month. You know, I think
something that was huge for me when you said sell me your program, and I was like all my spill about we positively impact people's lives. We do it through horses. We have well-trained horses. We've got nationally recognized
the
instructors and this
cheapest
and this and this,
possible
and we get all this stuff for this price point. And you're like, I don't believe you.
I don't
That was
believe you.
exactly, and
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean you don't believe it? You know, that's, and you're like, why, if that's how much you value what you just regurgitated to me, then I'm not going to value it at a, you know,
that
I'm not
price
going to
point.
believe that you're actually pouring all this stuff into my kid or into whatever based on that. And that was a huge moment for me
That's
that still
where-
sticks in my head. And that was
Right.
from a while ago.
that's why conversions don't always like you double your pricing, and maybe like it doesn't really hurt, and sometimes it can even improve your sales. Yeah, because I'm like if I said, hey, I've got a horse that I think can win nationals with its eyes closed, and you're like, okay, great. I'm like, it's $4,500. You're gonna be like, okay.
Yeah.
What's the catch?
Yeah.
It's got
One-eyed,
3
three
legs
legs.
and
the
no
market-
tail.
It's been on the market for 362 days, and you're like, everybody's been looking at it, and
Yeah.
you're like, and so why, so if I raise that horse's prices to 100,000, you might actually come look at it because you're like, yeah, that makes sense, right?
People
I have a
believe too
question.
if you pay more. We naturally believe we're getting a better product if we're paying a little more. Like I don't know.
Right.
I had a friend
It's
who
value.
worked for a boat company. They sold 2 different models of boats. One was $40,000 more. The boats were exactly the same except for the paint job. and they sold, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was upwards of twice as many of the $40,000
Yeah.
motorboat than the one that was less.
Well, that's
because-
like a scam, though.
Well, I get that, but I'm saying like
But
I
the
think we
psychology,
worry.
yeah.
It's like the other side of the spectrum of like, yeah, I don't believe that you're selling the horse for $4,500. Like that's too cheap.
Right.
But you'll go look at it if it's 100,000.
But it's value based. So
Yeah.
the overall theme of your pricing is that it's not per unit based. It's value based. So if we can get our clients' mindset, and this is what Josh and I are trying to do, is yeah, in my coaching program, people are like, well, how much coaching hours do I get? And okay, so it comes out to be X amount per coaching, and it's like, yeah, we can run the math that way and get a spreadsheet out, but really, like a lot of people that work with me, they add this much. It's very easy in a business coaching thing because I'm like, we very often add $100,000 in revenue, and so, and honestly, like you don't want to be on Zoom. You guys don't really want to be here. You know what I mean? You want that result. You want to add whatever it is, 100,000 in revenue. So we have if we can deliver that to you in pill form, it's still worth probably 40,000, right? If I have a pill, so it's not about the delivery mechanism. So the value, what you guys are delivering, is I'm going to teach your child how to think about something other than themselves. What's that worth you? And then also I'm at another barn where they're like, well, we're homeschooling and this is my kids' community because the people that I'm surrounded, that my kids are surrounded by, like influence them, and I want a really good unit. Okay, well, what's the value of that to you, right? That's what I want you to kind of think about. And then when I throw out, well, it's $1,000 a month, they're like, okay, they're just thinking, well, do I have those resources, right? And would I invest that in something that, and then the other thing they look at is, well, what likelihood, what's the because these things are all maybe, right? Like I can help you add 100,000 to your business, maybe. I think so. So we're both looking at it like, well, what's the certainty of that? So how do we, in the buyer's mind, how do we increase that certainty? You're like, well, I can't say that it's going to work for Zara, but it did work for this list of people here. All got that result. So now in the prospect's mind, I'm like, okay, pretty certain with this result. So I think that all of you guys need to really, like we talked a little bit yesterday of like the value of this, right? And a lot of those things make you a lot less price sensitive. And then I'm no longer like, I need my makeup and I need this and this and this. It's like, well, even if you get back into the barn and start, back to your two lessons a week, like your kid is still, picking out the stall and thinking about this horse and making sure it's got a clean place to sleep tonight. And like, that's what I and
That's
you're
what
like,
we're
look at my
selling.
kid, like, and look at these other kids. And that's the other benefit too of raising your prices is this particular client, and they're doing a really good job of this. They're in Texas, and they're like, $500 a month for one lesson a week, basically. And the whole thing was like, she was telling me nightmare stories. This client that I interviewed about the people that she was around in the public school system there, and just nightmare stories. It's like I don't want this kid ran through and destroyed the classroom, and my kid, they all had to move to like this crappy room for like the whole day, because this one kid couldn't control himself, and then no one, the parents, no one even reprimanded him at all, not the school, not the parents. And like I want my kid like to be respectful and learn this. So that day I pulled my kid out of the public school system and I homeschooled, and now at like this higher price point, everybody in that barn like in her mind, is really a different caliber of person than and so sometimes if it's only 160 a month, and I'm not trying to say that people that pay more are always better people, but
They might expect more of their kids.
but sometimes they are like you know, if I go to Walmart, there's all these like funny like memes of like the people at Walmart that are looking for the absolute cheapest possible thing, versus people that go to Whole Foods and pay for, you know, are willing to pay a premium for better quality food. Like there's some amazing people in the Walmart store that I would want my kids around, and there's some awful people that go into Walmart. But if that's all I know, I'm like, hey, look, my kid's got to hang out today in one of these two stores the whole day and talk to everybody in the
I want
store.
them over there.
Are you gonna?
It comes back to value base.
Are you gonna? Yeah. So generally speaking, the people that are, you know, investing in the best, and then the other like virtuous cycle is like, if you double your prices, now Travis has more resources to improve that client experience and make it and really justify it, because he can hire better instructors, he can get better lesson horses, he can start to look at things like paving the muddy areas or whatever it might be. So you get in that virtuous cycle. The other two things to think about is, or the last one is offshoring talent. So, you know, a lot of really good virtual assistants, like we talked about, the dollar is strong right now, I believe. And so that means $10 an hour can get you a really good admin. And so we all love our admins.
Can you typically find someone that can do, like, say I wanted someone to...
Speaking of the devil, here's my admin. Sorry, go ahead.
Like someone that would like take care of scheduling intros, but also someone that would reach out to people whose credit cards didn't run. Like you could, a lot of
Yeah,
times
my
find the
guy
same
does
person to
everything.
do-
He's
okay.
posting on social media for me. He responds to all my. I have to have help integrating my business email. For some reason, it's not going through to him, but he answers all my business emails. He follows up on credit cards that don't go through. He books all my intros. He if somebody comes to me and says, I'm having a problem with whatever, if it has to do with billing or scheduling,
He takes care of it.
I send them to him.
Okay.
Yeah, and Farah just joined. She's the first executive assistant I hired. Are you there, Farah?
And she helped me hire him. She found him for me.
Good, how are
and
you?
Hired him for me and
So-
trained him for me.
So yeah, Farah was the first executive admin. I've got you on speakerphone here, Sarah, with a few quantum people
Hi, Farah.
in person. That was,
Hi guys.
Hello.
and then yeah, Farah's got a real talent for finding and training other executive, and that's one of her primary things. And that's one of the things that many people are like, whoa, that was like,
It was a game changer.
ooh. They always say game changing or life changing, yeah. So those are some ways I wanted to just start by getting the juices flowing with, you know, some ways to decrease expenses, because you guys were talking about Farrier. But let's transition. So the transition now is I'm going to talk about money-making activities in order of short-term to long-term. Don't want to just talk. I want you guys to get your phones out, get your computers out after this, and send out some messages. I want to look at how you guys do that now, and then you can take a look.
Hey Sam, can you send a group message?
You're going to look at how I do it, right? And so Farah's going to help me. Technology is going to help me. But it's not that big of a lever if you don't have that. Like, we'll get you there. But if you don't have that, then do it however you would do it, where we're gonna actually pull out our book of businesses and actually come up with a list of a few different lists, send out messages to try to reactivate old clients, to try to reactivate old leads that they reached out. A lot of people reach out. Most of them don't become clients, so we have to continually reach out to them. And then existing client upgrades, existing client referrals. Those are things that we can squeeze today. All we can control is our actions. So I can squeeze them, and let's in the best possible way. Whether anything comes of it, maybe not. So I'll show you how I'm gonna segment that in my CRM and send out mass messages to each list that hopefully makes sense and have a reason. And then I'm gonna allow my team is gonna follow up on anybody because with reactivation, speed to lead is really, really important. And so a lot of people will become clients if you can respond within 90 seconds, because they're right there. But if you guys take, even though it's you and you, so if I compete, like me handle, if I was going to handle everything within 90 seconds, maybe I would do better. But with a team member that's right there, right? They're probably going to win because speed to lead almost beats like a really good message 24 hours later, right? Even like I have these incredible conversations with people, and then even a week goes by and I have to it takes me a minute to remember what we talked about and what's going on, because I think
Even a day later,
I
it's
think
a cool off period.
we're very just assume your prospect is in information overload in 2025 and activity overload, and talking to so many people on so many different platforms, and is on Instagram, is on TikTok, is getting how many emails a day, is getting so to cut through that noise, if they're right there on their text, you gotta have speed to lead. So I'm gonna use technology to sort it. I'm gonna use technology to send out a big message, and I'm gonna let my team hopefully have speed to lead after I send out the initial messages and stuff. But you guys and so you guys can see that benefit. But even if you don't have all that in place, do it your way, and you'll still get results. So let's take a little break, and then let's get out our technology and
See how many intros we can schedule.
and reactivate.
Yeah,
Yeah, see if
that'll
anybody
happen.
can reactivate. And then after that, we'll talk about your back end, and having a juicy product for somebody like Helene to, yeah.
And I have just a question before we, that doesn't need to be covered now, but I wanted to bring up to talk about insurance,
Yeah,
if you could.
insurance? What about it?
Firm liability insurance.
Just who all you recommend?
I use a guy named Aaron Bartolin, who only is licensed in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland, and he does all my stuff.
It's hard to find.
I have
Horribly
I
hard to
have a list of insurance people to get a quote from that I can give you.
I use is Farm Bureau everywhere. I use Farm Bureau.
Yeah, I think it. I don't know if it's all the same. They change their names so often.
Yeah.
I just know my agent, who does liability. He does mortality. He does cars and like the house here. So it's just nice to have one guy
Yeah.
that does all that, and I appreciate he'll come here and sit down with me, and his kids will fish in my ponds, and then he's responsive. So there's that. I could reshop it too, and so I can give you a list of some places that.
We just want to compare. I mean, we've compared some in the past, but there's not been many companies that will cover
Not a
everything.
great time to compare right now.
Right.
I have a friend who's
Because there's so many
an
natural
agent.
disasters.
The prices on getting new policies and new quotes are astronomical right now.
Insurance companies, because of the California fires and
Yeah.
the hurricanes in Florida, a lot of the insurance companies are all really negatively impacted, and they don't want to. They're very gun shy, and like the policies that I get now, they're like, just want to let you know we're not covering, you know, and
Good point.
Million things.
but yeah, I think it's still prudent to doesn't again
hurt.
if you have a team member to be like, look, get quotes from all these people here and get a Google sheet going, and do that with all your vendors and see. Some of my clients are really good at it. Some of my clients just are so bloated, and I can't get them. They're like, no, nothing. There's nowhere to save the money anywhere, and I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? Like,
We shop it around every year. I mean, we try to.
Well, we can't get someone to even look at it.
Yeah, but it's
It's so big. the
so. I mean,
farm.
we've been with actually the same company which sold a number of years ago, but since I opened the barn, I mean, so I've had but over 30 years, I've looked, at a variety of companies. Now we stopped doing birthday parties for different reasons, but they specifically wouldn't cover the bounce house. They specifically won't cover, different things that we would have. So we've just.
I think it's a little different in Texas with the livestock and farm
Yeah.
liability is
I
different.
don't know, but that's.
But yeah, to find that profitability, like the price lever is just head and shoulders like the most important lever. And then there's like your front end has to be rocking, your back end has to be rocking, and I want to talk about like keeping clients longer and increasing their value, their monthly rate. And then I want to talk about and then if you can meaningfully decrease expenses, you guys just might find some profitability.
So, when you guys say we're going to upgrade them to twice a week, what does that mean? Is it groups? Is it privates? Is it a mix?
Groups.
Is everybody like that?
I do all group lessons except for my gold members get one private lesson a month. And then my intro is
Right.
obviously a private, and maybe occasionally they'll like their first 1 or 2 lessons after that might be private or more one-on-one, and then they get moved to a group lesson time.
Okay.
Everybody does groups. I mean, well, I do all groups.
Yeah.
Maybe half our privates would be different, but we used to offer a private with like our gold,
Yeah.
like what would be our gold, and they just are not like.
They usually
weren't
only use
conducive.
them
Like,
like
it
we typically only end up doing them like when we need to go through a dressage test before the show. So a lot of times my gold members don't even utilize their private lesson during the off-season months, and then it's more like when we're prepping for a show that week of, they'll get like a mini private lesson to like really drill on something that they specifically need to work on. But I mean, most of them, it's not like a huge scheduling issue or anything
we do
like
a lot
that.
of privates for us, and typically when I sell package, now I understand the commitment we have to get stronger on, and the length of time for that commitment. But our privates are $99 for 45 minutes, and I'll often sell the $229, we're up to $229 in groups. And this is without any, what?
You said it's 229.
$229 for groups once, but that's without unmounted.
That's 4 lessons.
That's 4 lessons. And then they get 4 privates for $396. So the total of that is $625 for that package. So what would yours equal? That's your $700?
I like that a 30-minute private, a 45-minute group of 2, or a 1-hour group of 4 or more are kind of like interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, cause like, just for
I
me,
don't. We don't do it interchangeable because a group you're getting 4 or 5, or sometimes we have 8 in a group. One instructor, and then a private's one-on-one to work on whatever skills they want to work on.
But we reduce the time. So with for me, like I just find it easier to keep things simple and say you get 2 lessons a week, and it's you know, $6.99 a month, and those lessons will either be a 30-minute private, 45-minute group of 2, or a 1-hour group of 4 or more, and it's up to your instructor's discretion to decide what is going to be beneficial for
That's
you.
how we do it too.
And then, you know, ultimately at maturity, yeah, you have predominantly group lessons going on. And I grew up taking all group lessons. Loved it. It was like the highlight of my life was the Saturday morning group lesson with like my buddies.
When I first started working with Brian, I did almost all privates. And it was like, I was like, eventers. I don't know if you weren't in eventing when you were growing up, but when I was growing up, I did the group lesson barn initially. And then when I found out about eventing, it was a trainer who did like a lot of retraining of horses. And like, it was always one-on-one training. Or it was like maybe me and her daughter. Like she didn't do lessons.
Lonely
So
and isolating.
the idea of doing group lessons, I was like, I can't teach dressage tests with a group of people. Like that's like that concept of that was really hard for me to figure out. And
Right,
now,
It's a clinic, right?
Right.
Because the top dressage clinician, yeah,
Right.
the dressage world tells me
Yeah.
you can't learn in a group environment.
Yeah.
Dressage can only be taught one-on-one. And then I said, okay, well, what happens when the dressage clinician comes down? Well, then it's a clinic. I'm like, well, it's kind of like a group lesson, is it not? Like, they're like, no, it's a clinic.
It's a
totally
clinic.
different
It's completely
because
different.
because they're the out-of-town expert. So if you're from out of town, then you can learn a lot in a group setting. But if you're in town,
You
then
can't.
you
It
can't.
has to be one-on-one.
It has
You know
to be
what-
one-on-one.
you know
And I'm
what
like, why?
Brian's-
But they're like, I want to do more clinics. Why? Because I make so much more, and the people love it. And I'm like, well, couldn't we set up couldn't you
Every day's a
do
clinic,
clinics like in your backyard, like yeah, all week long, instead of having to get on a plane and try to like make this huge impact and never see these people again for the rest of the year? Like, and they're like, nope. I had a couple dressage people finally agree to it, and like, yeah, I've got one lady in San Diego. She's like, oh, thank God. Like, I have groups of 4 dressage riders, and they love it. And she's like, but all the dressage trainers like sneer at me. And I'm
Well,
like,
they sneer at everybody.
but they sneer at
Sneer
me.
at you, and you're making 4 times the money as them, so sneer
They
right back.
sneer, yeah.
I do
And
in my dressage because I do dressage lessons for my competitive students, and I do groups of 3, and I work with them one at a time, but they come work with me for 10 minutes, they go ride on their own for 20 minutes while someone else comes and works with me, and I cycle
It's like
through.
Yeah,
the
totally.
Rotate them around
The
and they
rhythm
learn
of
a
it.
lot
And they
from
take
watching
turns.
each other.
Yeah.
I even do like
They also know how to manage themselves in a warm-up ring way better than
For
the kids
sure.
who never have to ride with
For
other
sure.
I
horses.
did,
before.
yeah, I did a clinic with Mary Wanless, and she would work with me like intensely, and I was immune. She was immune to my charms. She didn't seem to like me, but I had the whole thing recorded, and yeah, she gave me like really detailed instructions, like now go work on what I told you, and like bring the next person in. So I was still in the arena, and like the rhythm, in my opinion, of like riding, it's like working out. It's like interval training. So my horse was like, okay, let your horse walk on a loose rein for 10 minutes and catch his breath, and then we'll try it again. Like
Yeah.
the rhythm of like,
I love the group
Yeah.
lessons.
because a private,
So
you're
much
like,
better.
you do your interval training, and you're like, okay, let your horse walk on a long rein for 10 minutes, and
then your lesson's
I'll
over.
get on my phone.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like you might as well bring in, you know, so.
Well, that's why I said even with the private lessons, if you do an hour private lesson, it was always just like I'm not gonna watch you walk around for 40 minutes. Like we're gonna work, and at the end of the day, then the horse is overtired, the rider's overexhausted, and I'm like, they just aren't. I still offer because I do a little different for my competitive students, but like they're welcome to use their lesson credits to come, even like when I'm riding training horses in the morning, if they want to come use one of their lessons to come ride with me in the mornings one-on-one. If they feel like they need something like that, they're welcome to do that. But I'll tell you, like they all love the group lessons. So rarely do I have anyone show up in the mornings and ride with me that way.
I really enjoy, like when it's my turn to watch and then somebody else is getting
Yeah.
Yeah.
tortured
Yeah.
and like you get to watch them and then after the lesson, like
You get
it's pretty
to
fun to
commiserate
kind of
with each
commiserate
other.
together. Like that is so much
bonding
better.
time.
Develops the team dynamic a bit
Yeah.
more too,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
think
agreed.
some of the parents appreciate that because one of the complaints I get anyway is like, well, it's not really a team sport, and I'm like, but it is because we're all working together as a team, and your horse is your teammate also.
Yeah.
You know, so
And it is in certain like it actually is right. Like if you do IEA or if I know there's a lot of 3-day events where they have like
Big
fun
teams,
they have
yeah.
fun teams and I know
U.S. Eventing has a youth.
and like at the
Program.
national level like there's usually a national team of 4 competing.
well, yeah. Well, there's
So-
all of our areas too have our area championships, and then they have the year-end
Yeah.
championship for the whole national area, and you can be on teams on that, and then they have young rider teams, and
Yeah.
they have the adult rider teams, and
So
it can
here's
be.
just a thought, just a kind of discussion for discussion. So we have classes every day, 7 days a week, and
3 or 4
at the
sessions.
same time that we have classes going on, we have one indoor, we divide it. But how many foundation lessons, one-on-ones or privates are going on average at the same time as a class?
So if I have 4 instructors scheduled, one will be in a class.
And you would have
then
3
3
one-on-one
other
lessons.
one-on-ones, whether they be an intro, a private, a 45-minute private, a 30-minute private.
Foundation,
Yeah,
which is the little
foundation,
kids.
little kids.
So,
So when
to
they
take
opt for a
those-
group, it's only a group. They can't take that credit per se and use it as a private.
yeah, but even with your pricing the way it is now, you're making exponentially more money when you're doing a group.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's $343 an hour for 5, and some of them are 8, for that hour. So,
but what I'm trying to say is
but
so.
we have, how many groups do we have? So, not on show days, 4,
So if you
8.
leaned a little bit away from privates, it makes a huge difference.
Well, we have as many groups as we can fit in.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean-
you guys are doing.
Well, I
So
was
we
trying.
fill our holes
So could we
with
do?
privates.
Could we do? Or does it take away from? Because some privates are advanced, like if you're an advanced rider already taking group classes, then you don't fit in the foundation beginner program anymore. You're at a higher price point with a private. We have a lot of people, and you tell me how many, but a lot of them will be in classes 2 or 3 days a week, some maybe more, but then they'll say, because we have a lot of different instructors, oh, well, does Leo have any availability? I'd like to set up a private lesson with him, or
That's
so
an
and so.
add-on that they pay an additional.
So then they're paying,
add-on.
no, that's additional,
No,
that's
it's
an
additional.
add-on, so like our classes that we run
So we have like 120 students in groups.
and then so whatever that adds up to be, so it's, our classes are a little over 50% of our gross revenue coming in for the academy, but then our one-on-one lessons are, at least 25,000 a month at least, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot, but we're filling in but the classes are still ongoing, and our classes, we might have a room for a couple of people in classes, but
Right.
they're full. I mean, that's,
That's where
So
for you
it's,
guys, you already have like a really good.
and she can show
We have a
you.
lot of really good things going. So in general, to keep things simple, I wouldn't make massive changes to the way that things operate.
Just
I would
the
only
add value
I
to
would
the-
just raise the prices
And add
dramatically.
and add the unmounted
and add a method
and
and a
curriculum.
curriculum. But I don't know that I would because I think there's a lot of things that have really evolved for you guys in a really good way, and you're in a really good place, and there's a lot of benefits of the way. But let's just raise prices on everything, like significantly. for new people.
I don't, $99
coming
for
in.
45 minutes? You wanna double that?
Well, so you teach 280 private lessons a month. How much do you pay your instructor to teach that? Because essentially, the $99, but if you're paying the instructor and the horse and the like, it just doesn't. I don't know. I could never make it.
Is that $99 for one? Is that the intro? Or is that
No, that's a
$99
private, that's a
private.
private.
So that's a
But
private.
to do
Yeah,
20,
intro is
25,000 a
$69.
month, you'd be teaching about 280 private lessons a
Yeah.
month.
I mean, it's a,
No, we're full. I mean, we're full.
well, and she
A
can
lot.
pull up our booking system where you can see it on her
Yeah,
computer.
No,
And I
I-
know I've never transmitted it to you for you to
No, we
actually
can go-
see it. But
not as
but
much
it's so, but
volume,
yeah,
go
so I mean,
higher, so
so we
depends what you
do,
wanna
we
do.
could,
I think, and you have to be in the group program to get to be eligible for a private, or do you have some people that just take privates? For
No, you have to graduate, so they start in what, foundations or intros. And after a few of those, you graduate, and you have to take a private or a group, or both.
and many take both.
Yeah.
If you're gonna lease a horse or be
Probably
part of the show
25%
team on
take
any
both.
level, even the lowest level, the first step is you must ride twice a week.
Okay.
So that's kind of our steer step, but so we have, like I said, a lot of instructors, but they're not paid a
So
tremendous amount.
I don't know that I would change the culture, and I don't know that I would change at this point. I think the big lever to pull is
Right.
that one product. I think, yeah, I don't know if there's room to double the single private lesson rate. I think that's
Right.
actually like the shining bright spot in your guys' pricing.
Yeah.
But the big thing
The class thing, yeah.
is your monthly subscription is anemic.
Okay.
So I don't know that I would change, and so that,
Well, I get that, yeah.
so I think, like, if you guys just fix that, we're talking huge.
Well, and then other things will fall into place once we get that up. And I'm very interested I really was thinking last night after,
And I wouldn't,
talked
and
about
I would
the-
also say, like, because some people, is just be a little bit careful. I like the idea of, if you're in our basic subscription, which I think you guys ultimately should be at like $3.95 a month for one lesson a week. Then on top of that, you could get a private lesson for $99. But I don't know that I'd want to have a lot of people that could
Have that
just
option
could
without-
just take a $99 lesson a la carte and have access to that, because a lot of times they won't take 4 a month. And so I want to make sure that no one is in this program
okay,
unless they're paying a minimum
of this,
of $3.95 a month to the business. And then if on top of that they want to take a $99 lesson here and there, that's totally optional. But so I would grandfather people in for a minute and just see if you can really create the basic minimum subscription, which I think should be closer to, I think $325 feels real to me, like what you guys can implement today, with the goal of getting to $395
With
maybe,
adding the unmounted.
with
yes.
adding them now
Yeah.
to the curriculum.
I agree with that.
And I also think that you can probably shorten the time it takes somebody to get into that subscription. A lot of people now, they take a single lesson, and then they enroll straight in that. They don't go through 6 lessons and enroll.
Well,
in
we
that.
kind of have they take their intro lesson, and then we have an intro package that
Right,
they
that's
take,
what I'm saying.
and then go into.
I'm saying, like, you don't need to do the intro package. And again, you guys are so mature in your business that it may not make sense to totally rearrange the culture. So, okay, still keep it, so I'm talking like short term, long term. Short term, just change the one product after the 6, what is it, 6 weeks to do the 6?
Well, it depends on the
it's 6
on the rider.
lessons, some can be, might do
Longer
several
could
a
be
week.
shorter.
Yeah, so
Okay,
if
so
they do-
so you got the client journey, you take an intro lesson, 6 weeks, and then you end up paying 190, 220 a month. Like short term, take an intro lesson, you do 6 weeks, and then you end up at 325. And then in the long term, I really think that you can experiment, and maybe this is an important part of your culture because it really prepares them, that 6 week package. You guys can have meetings on it, but I do know from an enrollment standpoint, it's not necessary.
Okay.
It may be, but maybe it does benefit you guys.
I think our
and I'm open to giving,
instructors-
to not, yeah.
Yeah, it's our
So-
instructors that liked the process with the one-on-one, because when I used to do all the teaching,
Okay.
I
Let's
put
keep it.
everybody straight into a class.
Let's keep it. But the big shining thing that's anemic and that is pretty core to you guys is only ending up at 190 or 220 after the 6 weeks. And so I would look to strengthen that today to 325 a month for all new people coming through. Have it be on auto pay
Right.
and start making that shift. And then when that grows and you find you might one day bump to 350 and then bump it to 395, and then at a certain point when you have the confidence behind everything you're doing, do that big book change, and everybody at a minimum, no one's in your ecosystem that's not at least at that 325. And then new people are at 350, new people are at 395, and you're kind of layering them in. And then in 12 to 18 months,
Build all the existing people.
you can bump people to a level below the current market, and keep bumping them up in a way. So
How
that's
do you handle that? Okay, so this person's grandfathered in, and this person's at the 350, and the next one's at 399, and they talk to each other, and they come back. Well, I want her price.
mhm.
How do
Price
you
isn't available anymore.
Yeah.
how do you handle that? I'm not
Well,
sure.
I think every business has people layered in at different prices. Every mature business you ever look at, every business owner has the right, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but has the right to run promotions. And most events I go to, there's people that did pay different prices and they did take advantage of different promotions. So, it's another one of those things that like haunts our minds, but in practice is usually not that
Yeah,
big.
that's a thing for me in my head.
It will come into existence a little tiny bit, and then you just say, well, she's been with us since 2009, so that's there's going to be somebody in 2030 that's like, you may be grandfathering at your price a little bit. And again, these things are nuanced, where it's a personal decision. Some of my clients do decide to just raise everybody to the exact same rate,
That's what you did.
all at once. So
And
that's a personal decision, of whether or not you want to do a little bit of grandfathering or not. So that's a personal. Some of the thing you got to do is raise prices. Then
We have to add our own money.
and I do think it makes sense to start with new clients, and then the personal decision is whether you bump existing clients all the way up, or you can bump them most of the way up, and then I can give you guys, I'll give you guys all the letters, because I also save letters from companies that successfully raise prices on me. And I like to look at the letter they sent me, and all that language is usually really good. So I'll give you that, like, thank you for your loyalty, like little lines like that. And our existing clients, our new clients are paying this, and so I'm kind of like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And so when I kind of look at that psychology,
No, that's a good concept for me in my head. Like, send out a letter like, the existing, we're raising you to X, but know that anyone new coming in is going to be this, and just put it out there right away.
yeah, I'll give you all these letters that
Yeah.
we have
Okay, that helps my head.
that have worked for a lot of our clients with the rationale behind it all.
Yeah.
And that, like, 80% the same letters that Travis sent out, 80%. We're like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a little break.